So I just rewatched this interview recently of Douglas Murray silencing this Islam-loving muppet on the BBC, and I wanted to watch it together, as I think it brings up some interesting points about the types of people our treasonous government has allowed to invade our country over the last nearly 3 decades. And stick around to the end, as I'll be sharing with you the true facts about the threat our country faces due to the importation of Islamic lunatics. So let's get straight into this, but 2 seconds here. Just wanted to say how much I appreciate everyone who watches these videos, and how grateful I am to everyone that chooses to like and subscribe. Anyway, let's watch.
Now, in your book, you talk about how Hamas is a pro-cult movement, and you talk about how some of their language has been absorbed in the West. You talk about those protests taking place at US and indeed UK universities, and you're saying that if the West is not careful, I think you talk about how this misplaced Western sympathy could embolden forces that perpetrate a culture of violence. What do you mean by that?
So just before we listen to Douglas respond, I just want to address the cult claim directly. So Hamas is absolutely a cult. As far as my stance on Israel versus Palestine, I support Israel. They were attacked and they should have every right to defend themselves. I don't believe this side nonsense. The fact is, Hamas effed around and attacked Israel, and now they're finding out. And don't be mistaken, we've been importing people who share similar beliefs to Hamas for decades in this country. So why is Hamas a cult? Well, there are plenty of reasons, but I'll share with you just a couple here. So in Hamas's 1988 founding covenant, it states, "Jihad is its path, and for the sake of Allah is the loftiest of its wishes." This echoes things that you can find in the Hadiths, which is essentially the Islamic version of the Gospels, a bunch of stories written after the Quran. But what this is basically saying is martyrdom and sacrificing their own lives in the act of attacking their enemies is a preferred outcome than losing their life in, say, like a defensive war. So its founding document not only condones acts of terrorism, martyrdom, like we saw in the Manchester Arena as an example, it encourages it. It's truly sick. A couple of other examples. In October 2025, senior Hamas leader Ismail Haniyeh stated that the blood of and the elderly in Gaza is necessary to, quote, awaken within us the revolutionary spirit. Also, the UN and NATO have stated that Hamas used civilian deaths tactically. You may have heard of this, but Hamas embeds military infrastructure in densely populated civilian areas, and they do this so there is maximum deaths to civilian life. This allows them to fuel international propaganda in terms of the hatred of Israel, and to encourage charity donations to fund their war efforts. They are truly sick people.
Now, in your book, you talk about how Hamas is a pro-cult movement. What do you mean by that?
Hamas is self-confessedly a death cult. It worships death, glorifies in death. It praises and seeks death. In the aftermath of October 7th, many people passed over Hamas's actions and got straight onto the issue of the Israeli counteraction. I didn't want the realities, the facts of what happened on the 7th to get lost in any way. Many people have done great reporting and journalism in the aftermath of that atrocity to put together what happened that day. But I spent most of the last 18 months there speaking to families, speaking to survivors, going around the hospitals, the morgues even, and finding out from the people hiding in their homes, from people who were suing their relatives, right the way up through the Israeli war cabinet and much more. I've tried to piece together what happened on the day. And then my first-hand account of the war that has resulted. But the third thing, which the book is really about, which goes to your question, is that I believe that something has been revealed in our own societies in the West, in Britain and America and elsewhere, which is deeply concerning. This was an attack by a cult on a democracy, the slaughter of 1,200 people in the most barbaric fashion, the taking of 250 hostages, stealing them from their homes and holding them and torturing them, some still there, like 21-year-old Edan Alexander from New Jersey. And that cult attacked the citizens of a liberal democracy like ours, and instead of siding with the liberal democracy, many people in countries like Britain sided with the cult. They sided with Hamas.
And you have been obviously writing about this issue for 10, 20 years or so, and writing about Islamic extremism in this country. And in 2017, after the Manchester Arena bombing, you talked about, because of that threat of Islamic extremism, extremism, we should have less Islam in this country. Was that a wise phrase, talking about less Islam?
Less Islam? No. We should have no Islam in the UK, not less.
Well, I think it's perfectly wise phrase, perfectly open to misrepresentation. I think I said it at the encouragement of the BBC.
Well, I'm reading your article.
It was
you
on the
wrote
BBC.
In the Sun.
It was on the BBC, that's why.
I'm quoting what you said in the Sun, less Islam. Surely less Islam means less people of the Muslim faith. That means less Sajid Javids, less Sadiq Khans.
Yes, it does. Khan, Javid, Mahmood, and the rest. None of them are here with our consent. So in my eyes, considering the British public has never consented, voted, or asked for any of these people to be here. In fact, public opinion polls going all the way back to the 1960s consistently show 60 to 80% of the British public want less or no immigration. So in my eyes, they should all leave until we actually have a referendum on whether we want any immigrants in this country at all. Until the British public give democratic consent, they're all here against our will as far as I'm concerned.
Well, that
It
depends.
means anyone who's a Muslim. That's what it means, isn't it? Isn't that provocative?
I mean, it would also mean less people like the Abaidi family, wouldn't it?
Yes.
I mean, yeah, exactly.
But the point is, you're talking about less Islam. That is Muslim people.
No. Just bear with me, because I know better than you what I think. This country has had a wildly stupid and lax immigration policy for decades. And we allowed people like the Abaidi family, a family of jihadists who'd fallen out with Colonel Gaddafi because they were from rival jihadist groups. When the Abaidi family fell out with Colonel Gaddafi, they came first to London and then to Manchester. And one of the sons they gave this country was Salman Abaidi, who at the age of 22 young girls at the Manchester Arena with a suicide bomb. One, by the way, for every year of life this country gave him. His brothers just stabbed and thrown boiling oil at 3 prison wards. Let me bear with you. Why were the Abaidi family in the UK? Why is nobody interested in asking that? And I'll tell you what the problem here is. There are lots of types of extremism. You get far-right extremism, far-left extremism. When it comes to jihadist extremism, jihadism comes from Islam. Therefore, if it's 1%, 5%, 15% of people of the Muslim faith who follow that version of it, you've got a hell of a problem. And the more people, the larger, this is simple math, the larger the number of people who are followers of a faith that has not solved the extremism problem in its midst or drawn suitable lines, the more extremism you will have. You don't get that from the Catholic Church in 2023 or 4. You don't get it from the Methodists. You won't get it from the Quakers, and you won't get it from the Anglican Church.
Of course, there is a problem with fundamentalism and Islamic extremism.
And fundamentalist Islam comes from
Islam, you're saying less of everyone, which means less Sajid David,
No, it doesn't.
less Sadiq Khan.
No,
and you're stereotyping
no problem
everyone.
at all with Sajid.
Is that all he can say? Less Sadiq Khan? What, you mean the second most hated man in the UK? The majority of this country outside of London would love to see him leave England and never return. So please, take Sadiq Khan. I mean, if that's his best argument, like, what a fucking moron.
No, of course it's not stereotyping. I mean, this is a kind of dated conversation to my mind, because this is all being addressed elsewhere as we speak. And nobody else is as incredibly slow in learning as the British media and political class when it comes to this problem. Why is it the case that Saturday after Saturday we have thousands of people going through major British cities who support the death cults who would murder Jews and the rest of us next? That's a question you and I and Newsnight should answer.
Douglas Murray, thank you for talking to Newsnight.
It's a pleasure.
Wow, we left him speechless. Anyway, thanks for watching.